Hi, this is Susan Proper with Women Inspired to Wellness. Thanks for being here with me today. Today, I have a very special guest with me that I've known for quite some time, coming from Australia. And her name is Susie Garden. And Susie is a nutritionist, and she is a lovely, sweet person. And I'm sure you will think so too after you get to know her from today's interview. Good morning to you, Susie. How are you today?
I'm really well, thanks, Susan. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Oh,
We're a little bit
good.
stormy here in Orlando tonight, but hopefully it'll just pass with no problems, no thunder and lightning, I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
hope
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was looking over some information tonight on your website, and your credentials are just pretty amazing. So tell
Thank
us a little
you.
bit about your story, because I'm sure you have a wonderful story to tell us. And like I said, Susie is a nutritionist, and her CV is like it's awesome. So yeah, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Susan. Yeah, so gosh, I've been working in healthcare for a really long time. I actually started off my career as a registered nurse here in Brisbane, in Queensland. Oh, a long time ago, too long for me to mention because I don't want to date myself too much. And after working, I mainly specialized in the operating theatre.
Mm,
And then I moved into the pharmaceutical industry, and I was there for about 16 years and a really long time, worked my way up that corporate ladder
mhm.
and found myself in a national role. So in Australia, Australia is about as big in terms of land mass as the United States. So it's really big. We don't have the population, of course, but it's very big. And my job was looking after a team of representatives around the whole country. So I was constantly traveling. We
Wow.
have multiple time zones across our country. So I was constantly in different time zones, living on airline food and hotel food. I had no routine. The only constant I really had was my weekly yoga class that I used to go to without fail. And it was kind of like my resetting point with my beautiful weekly yoga class, just in a little hall in my hometown. And I ended up getting very, very unwell. And I knew I'd been not too great for a little while. I was really tired. I was feeling very burnt out, very unmotivated. And I ended up getting a really nasty flu. And I was
Mm.
someone who never used to get sick. And so that kind of laid me out for 2 weeks. And for the first week of that, I could not even get out of bed for more than about 20 minutes. And I
Oh,
would just
wow.
really need to lie down. I was so fatigued. So yeah, I was really, really unwell. And it was the first time in about 5 years that I'd actually had time to reflect about where I was in my life and where I wanted to be. And when I really thought about it, I was like, I'm really not very happy here. Like the money was great, the perks were great. I was, feeling of someone of importance because I had a senior role. I was very
Sure,
caught up in that.
sure.
And I just couldn't get my head around how I would continue in that role and be happy and not be so burnt out. So I sat and reflected and thought, well, what can I do? I love healthcare. I don't want to do anything outside of healthcare. To go back to being a nurse, it would be 2 years of training,
Oh,
which
wow.
I just felt it wasn't really my desire after
Now, why
I'd
was
already been a
that?
nurse for some time
Why would you have
because
to go
I'd
back to
I'd let go
training?
of my registration. I'd let
Oh.
go, yeah, my registration. And in Australia, to retrain, once you let go your registration, yeah, you have to do practical. So you have to spend time working in a hospital under supervision for a number of weeks. You have to do university training, all this sort of stuff. So
I see.
I figured for the time involved and the fact that I'd had a 10-year nursing career, I felt like I just wanted to do something else. And so I thought, let's look at an online business. And I decided to study nutrition because I was super interested in food and nutrition. And I decided to do my yoga teacher training more for me. I never ever thought I would teach, ever. I
That
just
sounds
wanted to learn
familiar.
more. I know, right?
Yeah,
I hear that
yeah.
from so many teachers. But yeah, I'd been doing yoga for 20 years, but I really felt like I wanted to learn more about the philosophy. So I went to Bali I took
Oh,
some annual leave, went to Bali for a few weeks, did my teacher training as an intensive. It was life changing, Susan. It was, oh my goodness, I had never felt more me than in that few weeks in Bali. I mean, it was very decadent to be, I've got a very supportive and understanding husband who was looking after things at home while I was just able to take this time for me. I mean, it was super intense. We were starting, at 6 a.m. with meditation and working right through till 9 o'clock at night. We had a 2 hour
wow.
break in the middle of the day, but it was
Wow.
super intense. But it just, yeah, was incredible, life changing. And I got back from that, and a month later I was laid off, and it was like the best thing that could have happened to me, because I really felt like it was the universe saying to me, well, here you are,
I was just going
here
to
you
say
are.
that the universe spoke. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exactly how I felt. It was like, okay, you've made these steps, you've started studying nutrition, because I was doing that all online while I was still traveling. You've got your yoga, let's see what you want to do with this.
Hmm.
So I had then the opportunity to go to my college full time as an on campus student. So I did that, studying nutrition. And then from that, I actually then expanded into naturopathy as well, because in our student clinic, I had access we shared it with our naturopathic students, but we weren't allowed to touch the herbs. And I found the herbs so exciting and interesting.
Hmm.
And I think because of my pharmaceutical background, to me, herbs, they have effects in the body very similar to pharmaceutical drugs, but they just do it in a more natural way. And they don't tend to have the
Yes.
side effects because
Yes.
the body kind of knows what to do with them. So I did that training as well. I worked as a yoga teacher to support myself through that period of time. And yeah, I ended up opening my clinic in Brisbane, teaching yoga at a studio, just living the dream. So, so good. Since then, I have had to close my clinic. Unfortunately, it was located inside a yoga studio, and that studio has permanently closed.
Oh boy.
And so, yeah, that was a real shame. But I had already planned to relocate to the Gold Coast, which is where I live now. So I relocated about 4 months ago. So now all my clinic is online, which has given me the flexibility to work with people all over the world, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
And I also teach meditation to injured soldiers on one of our local army bases. So that's really, really
Oh my
rewarding and
gosh.
an awesome part of my job. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And they love it
I'm
too.
sure they do.
Yeah, it's really funny. We do it in like a 6 week block. And week one, I get a new group each time. Week one, you get all these big burly blokes just sitting there with their arms crossed, going, "Yeah, just make me meditate."
Yeah, yeah,
And then,
yeah.
yeah, and then by about week 2 or 3, they're like, "Oh, this is really good. I really like this."
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been a real learning experience for me, experiencing burnout, because burnout for me manifested as anxiety,
Okay.
as well as the fatigue, the sleeplessness, the lack of kind of motivation, and feeling like, when I did have time off, I didn't want to see friends. I just wanted to be still.
Mhm.
And, after all the travel, I just wanted to be still at the end of the week. And yeah, and then I started having panic attacks. And then that's when
Oh boy.
I knew I needed to do something. Yeah. Yeah. It was
Wow.
really quite scary at the time, but I managed through nutrition, which to me is the foundation of good health, and meditation, looking after that mind, looking after the body with yoga. I feel
Mhm.
like it was an amazing healing journey for me that I then helped take my patients through.
That's fantastic. What a I mean,
Mm.
what an amazing story that is, and I so relate to that. I'm a corporate dropout too, corporate burnout,
Yeah.
and I I didn't go the naturopath way. I didn't get into nutrition, but it was really yoga and meditation
Mm.
that
Yeah.
saved me. Of course, I
Yeah.
did seek professional help too. I went into depression.
Oh
I didn't
gosh.
have the
Yeah.
anxiety and the panic attacks, but I so relate to that whole sense of withdrawal and not wanting to be
Yes.
with people and just wanting to climb into bed
Yes.
and yeah, withdraw.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, I completely relate. And I mean, I'm naturally an introvert,
Mhm.
so it was such an effort for me to be out and about in all of these new environments every week, meeting a whole bunch of different people, different customers, sometimes having to have challenging conversations with my direct reports and also with the managers above me.
Wow.
So yeah, there was a lot going on, and I think also just with the lack of good food, the lack of any sort of routine, and being so tired all the time, it just, yeah, it was not a good recipe for good health. And I
Yeah.
feel like from a lot of the clients and just people generally that I talk to, there are so many people living that experience and
Yes,
they just don't know how to get out of it.
that's right. I totally
And it's
agree.
it's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, really tough.
It's amazing the situations that we end up putting ourselves into for the sake of, well, I know we all need a job, but for
Yeah,
the sake of, trying to better ourselves, better our lives, but in the end, we
yeah.
don't really better our lives necessarily, do we?
That's
We
right.
cause disease, we cause physical disease, we cause emotional disease, and we cause all these things to happen that are not an improvement to our lives, even though we think by earning more or by having a more prestigious
Yeah.
zip code or,
Yeah, or
car.
job title.
Yeah, exactly. We think that that's going to make things better for us, but sometimes in the long
Yeah.
run, it does not. Yeah.
No, exactly. And I often used to think when I was in that period and I couldn't work out what the next step was going to be. And I was the breadwinner as well. Like my husband worked, but I was always earning a lot more than he was at that time. And I would reflect back when I was feeling fear about walking away from that income,
Hmm.
that prestige into the unknown. Because, as you know, when you work for yourself, there's no guarantees you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's it's a very different life. And I remember thinking back to, when we were living in our first home, which was a little tiny little cottage. It was really run down. And I was working as a nurse and my husband was in the Air Force at the time. And I remember thinking, we didn't have a lot of money. We weren't living in a really lovely home, or we thought it was lovely, but we were so happy. We were
Yeah.
so happy and appreciated the little things in life. So I knew that whatever happened, we would be okay. I thought, well, worst case scenario, I'd just get a job again that
Hmm.
in a similar line.
Hmm.
But gosh, I don't make the money I used to make, but I have the best life. I think I have so many choices. I have so much freedom as to how I run my business and how I manage my patients. And yeah, the fact that I had the freedom to, for my husband and I to move here to the beach and the Gold
Right.
Coast, it's incredible. Like we feel so blessed and so grateful for taking some choices that were very, very tough at the time.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
and the choices that you made not only give you that freedom, but they give you well-being, don't they?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the thing. We get, I think, I don't want to use the word brainwash, but it kind of feels like that to me, like it is a bit, with all of the things that we're supposed to have, all of the things that kind of make us successful in life. And
Mhm.
generally, those things are things that are valuable in terms of monetary terms. But
Yes.
it's not until really you realize how precious your health is. If you go through a health scare, for example, I hear patients say that all the time, that get diagnosed with very, very serious disease,
Mhm.
that often will say it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to take stock of where I was at in my life
Right.
and some of the mindless things that I was doing, like the corporate treadmill,
Mhm.
and thinking that that was really important. But really, what's really important is your health, your well being, your family, your friends, your community,
Yes.
so much more than having the latest car or the latest TV or the best phone or, amazing jewelry or whatever it is.
You're
It's,
right.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yes, you're so right about that. It's yeah.
yeah,
eh, but it can take a lifetime to learn that lesson, and some people never learn that
yeah,
lesson, unfortunately, and
totally.
or maybe they
Yeah.
don't feel it's unfortunate. It's
I
just
don't know. I think sometimes it might manifest for them in a feeling of emptiness, in a feeling of not having enough, not being enough. I'm not sure, because I do remember having some of those types of feelings. I mean, I was at a point financially where I could just walk in and, drop thousands of dollars on something like a handbag or whatever, and it wouldn't be a big deal in my budget. But
right.
I remember I actually did that once. My husband and I went shopping and we went into Gucci, and I bought a handbag. I'm almost embarrassed to tell a story. I've never told this story before, actually. I went and spent, I think it was about $2,000, and just dropped that on a handbag and walked out with this handbag. And I just felt, as I was walking out of the store, I actually started feeling sick.
Mm,
That I just felt to myself, my gosh, $2,000 I've just dropped on a handbag. That could make such a difference to someone's life,
mhm.
and yet I'm just spending it on a handbag. Why aren't I felt this guilt. I felt sick, and I didn't feel good about it. And that was probably one of the start of feeling like, well, what am I doing here? Like,
Yeah.
how, how am I contributing? I felt really good about the work I was doing. As much as, you talk about the pharmaceutical industry, there's a whole big, stigma about that. And moving from the pharmaceutical industry to the natural health industry, it's kind of like moving to the dark side, so to speak, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting.
Yes.
But yeah, I felt like I was doing really good things in my job in terms of managing my team and helping people get access to medicines that they needed, and things like that. But at the same time, I was getting paid a lot of money, and I just thought there was an emptiness associated with that. And I wonder sometimes, because I do see quite a lot of patients. My clinic was in an affluent area, and I do see a lot of people that come to me with mental health issues. It may not be like a diagnosed mental illness, but suffering stress, anxiety, hopelessness, and yet on the outside, they look like they have it all.
Yeah.
They look like they have the successful life. They've got the designer handbag, they've got the jewelry, they've got the nice house, they've got the right address,
Mhm.
but there's something that's not there. And that's where I think that having some mindfulness about your life and having practices that support that can be extremely valuable in helping you get some clarity around that.
Mhm. And meditation
Mm.
really can play such an
Mm.
important role in that. It's such a
Oh,
big awakening, I think, for many people when you introduce meditation into your life.
yes.
It can be a real eye opener. Yeah.
Yes. And I love now that there is so much research associated with meditation and its health benefits. I remember, and I don't know how long your yoga association is, Susan, but if it's anything like mine, like I was practicing yoga in the mid 90s, and it was considered very out there. There were no yoga studios. You were always in a school hall or something like that. And it was very alternative, and people still thought you were a bit of a weirdo. And meditation, in my mind, I always thought I wasn't doing it right because I wasn't levitating. I wasn't having these blissful experiences. I just felt bored most of the time. And I couldn't stop my mind. And I'm like, I'm definitely not doing this right. Maybe, I need to wear a caftan
Oh,
and
geez.
light some incense in order to be doing this right. So I think that I certainly had that image in my mind of that's what meditation was, and that's
Mhm.
that's who meditators were these alternative people.
Mhm.
So I struggled with it a lot in the beginning, and it was only for me, I really had to do a yoga practice first and then do meditation at the end. That was pretty much how it would work well for me, because like my
Okay.
body would be so relaxed at that point.
Mhm.
And it was only later, probably only, gosh, 2013, 2014 when I really started looking at meditation as it's a practice on its own
I
and
see.
able to sit. And that's when I was sort of more into studying it, and also in 2013 when I was still working in my job and I was desperately looking for something to help me.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I didn't know what to do. And of course, that was before all these amazing apps and things were so
Oh,
readily
right.
available
Yeah.
like they are now,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, and this is where when I'm working with the army, I think how I get traction there is the evidence behind it is so compelling now.
Yeah.
You know, the research using MRI machines where they actually measure
I know, it's
thickness
amazing.
of gray matter and it increases with meditation. You go, oh, you can't deny that.
You
That's
can't, you know,
physical
it's
evidence.
it's unbelievable. You cannot refute
Yes.
that. It's just unreal how that works for, the brain.
Yes.
Now, um, do you I have so many questions about that. How did you, get into that working with the army,
Uh,
the soldiers? And
yeah.
also, do you teach, yoga nidra? Have you ever taught yoga
Yes.
do you teach yoga
Yes.
nidra with the soldiers as well?
Yes.
Oh, I need
I
to hear
teach
about
iRest. I teach iRest. So
that.
iRest,
Oh,
integrative
okay.
restoration.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're fully. Have you been
I'm
trained in
I'm
that, Susie?
certified in, with, mm, Jennifer Reese.
Jennifer
She
Reese. Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I'm familiar with her. Yes. Yeah. She
Okay.
does beautiful yoga
Yes,
nidra.
she does.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, iRest was actually developed by a psychologist and yoga teacher. He's in California. His name's Richard Miller. And he actually in the mid noughties, when all of the soldiers were coming back from the Middle East and had terrible injuries and lots of mental health issues, and the drugs that they were giving them and the therapies just weren't enough. And he approached the Department of Defense and said, hey, I've got this thing, can I do a little bit of research in your soldiers? It's definitely not harmful. It might be helpful. And they said, sure. And he did a lot of research. It's still ongoing. It's published research in looking at iRest Yoga Nidra in people with PTSD, with chemical dependence, with acute brain injury, with musculoskeletal injury. There's a whole bunch of different research, even resilience of military couples, and all extremely positive. And so it's actually in the treatment programs in the Walter Reed medical centers, which is amazing.
Wow.
And yeah, and what I like about it, it's yoga nidra, but he's added an extra level of a process of self-inquiry into that. And what it does is it just helps integrate people's experiences, bring them from the mind, experiencing them in the body, make them more grounded, and it just helps people to process their trauma.
Mhm.
Helps people manage pain, helps people to get sleep. It's amazing. When you know the power of yoga nidra, this
I
is
do.
like yoga nidra on steroids. it's
Mhm.
it's just takes it to that next level, because
Wow.
when we relax the nervous system to that point, you know, you do your body scan, you do your breath awareness, work with your opposites, your nervous system is very relaxed, and it helps people to experience their stuff in a state of deep relaxation. So they don't get that big reaction
Yes.
to it. It helps them to face some of their experiences and process it
Mhm.
and move on from it. It's
Yes.
really, really interesting work.
Wow. My god.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited about that. I had no idea that you were
Yeah.
doing that. That's
Yes. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. It's a small part of what I do, but it's probably my favorite. One of my favorite jobs is working with those army personnel, because for them, a lot of them have never been exposed to this sort of thing before. And the program, it's part of a structured program. They're doing yoga, they do life coaching, they do even things like cooking, budgeting, because a lot of these people, as you know, go into the army from school
Yes.
and may never have lived and had to manage their own,
Mhm.
food shopping and,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
basic things. And then they get injured and maybe being medically discharged in this program. Some of them will be medically discharged. Some of them, they're hopeful they'll rehabilitate them enough to send them back to their unit.
Mhm.
through this program. And yeah, it's something that is very dear to my heart. I've been doing it for about 4.5 years now.
Okay. I was just
And
gonna ask
yeah,
you that.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow, how
yeah. And I
rewarding
got
that must
into
be.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you asked me how I got into it. It was just pure. Again, I feel like it was just the universe guiding me. I was working. I was actually hiring out a space at a local hall teaching yoga, and the army had their yoga teacher left, and they just inquired at the hall and said, "Do you have any yoga teachers that would be interested?" And when I went and had my interview, I said to them, "Have you got meditation on your program?" And they said no. And I said, "I actually think that's potentially more important than yoga for these guys at the level they were at, because a lot of these guys have very severe injuries."
Yeah.
And so they ended up putting meditation on the program, and
Wow.
here we are.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And they love it. That I get fantastic feedback from them. And yeah, they keep asking me to come back. So yeah,
For
it's
you.
awesome. I love
And
it.
good for them.
Mm.
It's a win-win
Yeah,
for everybody. Wow.
it totally is. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's great.
Good for you.
Mm. Mm.
Wow. Well, that was sort of an unexpected segue.
Yes. Yes.
Because really, when you were telling me your story, I was going to ask you something else, and then all of a sudden we started talking
Yeah.
about soldiers, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a
I
minute! If we're
know. I
heading that way
know.
instead of this way." Um, so when I'm heading back to your corporate life now,
Yes.
that we talked
Yes.
about the soldier, so we're saying bye bye to yoga nidra and the soldier,
Yes. Yes.
and heading back to your corporate life. Um, when you left your corporate life, um,
Yeah.
what was the hardest thing for you? Changing
Uh,
changing your life around completely, changing,
yeah.
I mean, I could answer that question very easily for myself, but for you, what was the hardest thing about making that big change in your life?
There was a lot of fear.
Mm,
There was a lot of fear because no one in my family ever worked for themselves. They'd always been employees. I didn't know anybody who worked for themselves. And so yeah, there was a lot of fear about, well, where's my paycheck going to come from?
mhm,
And I also felt, coming from conventional medicine, I had never really embraced natural medicine. It wasn't really a thing I had much stock in. And funnily enough, I didn't actually know I'd enrolled in an alternative health program
what?
when, because I was studying nutrition, and
Oh,
I didn't realize until I went on campus for the first time, and I was actually getting lecturers face to face. I didn't realize it was an alternative health campus. I thought it was just a standard nutrition program. And look, it was an accredited nutrition program, but a lot of the lecturers were naturopaths, and some of them were really alternative. Like one of my anatomy lecturer was a shamanic healer, and
wow.
I'd never come across that before. And she was incredibly knowledgeable, great person to learn from. But then she had this other spiritual side, and it was really quite
Wow.
astounding to me. I was like, oh, what am I doing? But it really opened up, because I'd lived a very conservative kind of life,
Yeah.
hung out with conservative people. And then suddenly I was in this alternative health college. I was teaching yoga. I was hanging out at yoga studios with yoga teachers that also had really,
Oh my God.
interesting life journeys. And yeah, but yeah, I guess the hardest thing was that was such a big change.
Mm,
And it was kind of like, well, who am I in all of this?
yeah.
I'm used to putting on a suit. I'm used to hanging out with doctors and hanging out with corporate people. And now I'm hanging out as a full-time student in my 40s, as and yeah, coming across all of these people that have these really different life views, really different life journeys. So that a lot of that was really hard. It's like, well, who am I in this, and who do I need to be to fit in here? But then, realizing, actually, I just need to be me.
Mhm.
And and see what happens. And so there was that leap of faith, I guess, but there was a lot of fear in that, and that fear hung around for quite some time. And I still feel it on some days. Like COVID this year, having to close my clinic, it's like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
Am I going to have a clinic? Am I going to have a clientele?
Yeah.
Are people going to want to see an online naturopath or nutritionist? But it's all worked so
Right.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I eventually want to get another practice, a bricks and mortar practice, but I'm just waiting a little bit to see what happens, with the economy and all that. But at the moment, things are going really well.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. So I guess my advice would be, if people are thinking, well, what do I do? Yes, there is going to be fear, and fear is not necessarily meaning don't do it, because we are wired for survival. Our brains are wired for survival, and we're wired to pick threats. So we are going to really listen when something feels fearful. But if you've got a plan in place, certainly, I mean, I talk about the universe providing, but at the same time, I had already started studying nutrition. I'd got my yoga teacher. I'd started making a plan. And I didn't just decide one day, oh, I'm going to do this and not have a plan. And I also had some, because I was laid off, was given a payout. So I had some financial security there. So yeah, I'd say have a plan, know that it might be feel fearful, but lean in and see what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always, whenever you decide that you are going to step out as an entrepreneur, and especially I think for a woman,
yes,
there is always that fear factor involved. There's always that doubt that comes in, that little sound in the back of your head saying, oh, can I do this? Should I do this? Am I doing this right?
I know.
And I think that's normal. I think, as you stick with things longer and have a few successes and learn your lessons and develop a plan, like you said, you gain more confidence, and then those voices tend to become a little bit quieter. But I think initially it's perfectly normal for those things to be there.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a matter of learning how to not pay as much attention to them as we sometimes do.
Yeah, I know. And also, I lost my best friend. Like, she decided that she didn't like this path I was taking. And, like I was really shocked. I was really shocked that, my parents weren't understanding of why I would walk away from a high paying job to do what I was doing. Like, they saw it as a real backward step. So yeah, don't expect to have the support of everyone around you. You got to be fairly, strong in your own beliefs, I guess, about what you're doing and doing what's right for you, and not necessarily listening to what other people might be saying to you.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily have your best interest at heart. They haven't lived your life journey.
Right.
And you're not necessarily going to get that understanding from people around you. But
that's a very valid point. Yeah. And that's unfortunate that you lost a best friend.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, I was shocked. At the attitude that was there around walking away from the money to pursue something alternative.
Right.
I think that was that person who has a very, very strong corporate job and focus just couldn't get their head around it. Wow. And just felt like I was doing completely the wrong thing and just didn't want to be a part of it. So it was this is what happens. I mean, my parents questioned it, but they're still my parents. They're still great. But I do remember when I was learning iridology, and I needed some test subjects to practice on, and I took my iris torch over to my parents' house to look in their eyes, and I looked at mum's, and then I was looking into dad's, and he said to me, "Is this what they call quackery?" And I've just gone, "Yes, Dad. Just don't worry about it."
Oh my God, that's so
It
funny.
was so funny. It was so funny. Yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah. 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 It was
Yeah.
very funny.
Yeah. Well, you have to do, again, as an entrepreneur, you have to do what's right for
Yes.
you. Only you walk in your
Yeah.
own shoes, right? You can't live your life for somebody else. You
Absolutely.
have to live your life for you. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think, as someone who's always been very much in the conventional mold, when you do kind of go off that path and you have some of these energetic experiences, these experiences that can't necessarily be explained by science, but you feel them in your body. I mean, you would have had them, some of these experiences you have with meditation in particular, where you just feel, I can't even explain it. It's very hard to put into words, but you feel connection, you feel certain sensations in the body that you can't really explain. And I always go back to, one of my lecturers said to me, we very much feel like if we can't see it, if we can't sense it with our senses, then it's not real. If you can't see it, you can't measure it, then it's not real. But yet we know that there are sounds that we can't hear, right? That dogs can hear, for
Yes.
example. My
Yes.
dog can hear sounds that I can't hear because they're on a different spectrum that our senses can't detect. And we accept that.
Mhm.
So why can't there be other energies, other things going on in our universe that we can't see with our senses? That doesn't mean they're not there.
That's
And
right.
sometimes I think we can experience that. I mean, we see miracles in medicine all the time. I remember back when I was nursing, looking after a man who had a brain tumor, and he was essentially, unable to look after himself. So he was like, I remember looking after him in the hospital bed, and he just couldn't even roll over in the bed. We had to go and turn him. He was getting fed through a tube, all this sort of stuff. And he was sent off to a palliative care hospital in our town and expected to pass away. 6 months later, one of the nurses in our ward saw him walking down the street in what our street is that has all of the specialist rooms. And she saw him and she said to him, what's, how are you? I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
expect to see
Yeah.
you walking around. And he said, I know. He said, the tumor went away
Oh my
and
gosh.
here I am. And, this happens all the time, that people
Yeah.
have healings that we can't explain.
Mhm.
And so I feel like there's a lot of stuff that goes on in our bodies, in our around us, that we can't see, we can't sense, but it's happening. So I'm very open now to all kinds of things that perhaps when I was in that more conventional life, I would have just completely dismissed.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And you know, being on this side, what some people would say is the dark side, the more
Yes.
natural side now versus the
Yes.
pharmaceutical side. I'm not
Yes.
saying that pharmaceuticals are all bad. I had this conversation with another yogi friend of mine who is into floral essences.
Yes. Yes.
And I know we need pharmaceuticals. I know we need the medical profession. I know that doctors, nurses, hospitals, and all of that is so very necessary and vital to humanity. But you said something earlier that just resonated with me. And I wish I could remember exactly how you said it, but you said something about how the body recognizes more naturally
Yes. Yes.
the
The
herbal.
plant medicines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's that is what is so wrong about, in my opinion, I don't want to get in trouble here with anybody, but that's what's so wrong to me about the pharmaceutical industry, because
Mm.
to me, the natural way is so much more recognized. The natural medicines are so much more recognized by the body and
Yeah.
easier to assimilate or by the body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're more gentle.
mhm,
And I believe there are some energetic properties as well, which we can't explain.
mhm,
I mean, we have evidence, we have science around the natural medicines, the herbal medicines. However, a lot of that is done in the laboratory. It's not done in big population trials like we do it in the pharmaceutical industry because we can patent those drugs and we can make money out of them.
yeah,
With the plant medicines, anyone can
yeah,
access them. You could go out and do some wild crafting and pick up some nice herbs out of, a forest or in your neighborhood even, and boil them all up and put them through the process to get the medicine out. And you could, that's perfectly okay. So that's where we lack those big clinical trials. And I think we could do so much more with our plant medicine if we had those resources, but we just don't, because no one can own those plant medicines.
there's no money in it.
There's no way you can exclusively have that, and therefore
Right.
from a business point of view, there's not the motivation to put resources behind it to do the research. So yeah, that's
Much
where we
more
lack.
polite than me.
That's where we lack. Yeah, but at the same time, we know then, if they're used by a proper qualified person, like a naturopathic physician that has that training, that you can get exceptional results with people.
Mhm.
But yeah, also we know that if you don't use them in the right way, that they can cause problems. So you
Oh,
need to make sure that the person that you're getting your products from and
yeah.
that's prescribing them actually understands your medical history, what any other medications are that you're on, so that we don't muck around with any stuff like
Right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, you
important.
eat the wrong kind of mushroom or something and you end up dead, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean, I know I'm
Hopefully not dead.
exaggerating a little bit, but yeah, you can become very sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for
Right.
sure. Mm.
Wow. Well, this
Wow.
this is this was a very interesting conversation, and I forgot to mention all of your social media stuff, and I
That
feel bad about that. So I'm going to do that now before we say anything else. Um, so your Instagram and your Facebook are the same. It's Susie Garden Wellness, and you have a Facebook group also, which is called the Wellness Glow. And if I were
yes.
you, any listeners out there, I would look her up because this is very interesting stuff. And Susie
Yeah.
also has a giveaway for anybody listening, and it is a recipe book, which I assume
Yes.
would be awesome, and also a meditation. Now, how do they go
Yes.
about getting that?
Look, if you just message me through my socials, I think that's the easiest thing
Okay.
at the moment, is
Okay.
just to slide a DM into either my Facebook or Instagram, and I will set you up.
Okay, fine. And
Yeah.
I'll, when I post this episode, I will mention that as well in the
Thank you.
notes. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm
All
wondering
right.
if there is anything else that we forgot to talk about. My gosh, we
No,
got sidetracked by
we've
a
had
bunch of stuff here.
I know. I didn't think we'd be talking about all of this today. That's quite funny, but it's really great. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Susan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I guess we covered most everything plus a bunch of other things
I
that
know.
that were really interesting. So I have to thank you so much, Susie, for being here with me today, all the way
Uh,
from Brisbane. No, no, you moved.
I'm in the Gold Coast now, Burleigh Heads. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, in Australia. How wonderful. And it's
yes,
springtime there and
yes,
it's fall here
yes,
in Orlando. So, but
yes.
anyway, you have a great day and thank you again for being with me and we shall
Thank
talk soon.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.